me dead in the eye last Tuesday night and announced that I had no right to judge who she spent time with. Just like that. Over dinner at our kitchen table, she declared her independence from my opinions about her new group of friends. This whole mess started 3 weeks earlier when she joined some book club through Facebook. Except it wasn't really about books. From what I could tell, it was more about complaining about husbands and drinking wine at inappropriate hours. The leader of this group was this woman who'd been divorced twice before 30 and seemed to collect married women as followers. When I first mentioned that these new friends seemed to have a lot of drama in their lives, my wife's response was immediate and sharp. "You don't get to choose my friends anymore." "I'm not choosing anything," I replied, setting down my fork. "I'm just pointing out that every conversation you have with them ends with you being angry at me for something I didn't even know I did." She crossed her arms. "That's because you don't understand female friendship. We support each other. We don't judge each other's choices." The irony of her judging me while talking about not judging wasn't lost on me, but I kept that observation to myself. For now. So when they tell you that your husband asking where you're going at 10 p.m. is controlling behavior, that's support? Her face flushed red. "It is controlling. I'm an adult. I don't need permission to leave my own house." "I never said you needed permission. I asked where you were going because I care about your safety. There's a difference." She stood up from the table, her chair scraping against the floor. "This is exactly what they said you'd do. Turn it around and make me feel guilty for wanting independence." The they in question were 3 women who seemed to spend most of their time analyzing everyone else's relationships while their own lives fell apart. One was going through her second divorce, another couldn't keep a job for more than 6 months, and the third had 2 kids with 2 different fathers and couldn't understand why neither man wanted to stay involved. But apparently, these were the people my wife had chosen as her relationship advisors. "Independence is fine," I said, keeping my voice level. "But when your independence includes staying out until 2 a.m. on work nights and coming home smelling like cigarettes and cheap perfume, maybe we should talk about boundaries." She slammed her hand on the table. "Boundaries? Now you want to set boundaries on my friendships?" I want to understand why my wife of 8 years suddenly thinks spending time with her husband is optional. Her response came swift and sharp. "Because maybe it is optional. Maybe I've been settling for someone who thinks he gets to approve of every decision I make." The kitchen went quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. I looked at her carefully, really looked at her. This wasn't the woman I married. This wasn't even the woman from 6 months ago. "All right," I said finally. "You're absolutely right. Your friendships are your choice. Your decisions are your choice." She blinked, clearly expecting more of a fight. "Good. Finally. And since we're talking about choices, I've got some of my own to make." The confidence in her expression flickered for just a second. "What's that supposed to mean?" I stood up and started clearing the dishes. "It means if you want complete independence in your choices, then I get the same independence in mine. Fair is fair." She followed me to the sink. "Don't be dramatic. This is about friendship, not our marriage." "Is it? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're getting advice on our marriage from women who can't maintain their own relationships." Her eyes narrowed. "Don't you dare insult my friends." "I'm not insulting anyone. I'm making an observation. But you're right, it's not my place to judge. Your choices are personal." The way I said personal made her pause. She wasn't stupid. She could hear the shift in my tone. "What are you planning?" she asked. "Nothing dramatic. Just exercising my own right to personal choices." She stared at me for a long moment, trying to figure out if I was bluffing. I wasn't. "Good," she said finally, turning away. "Maybe now you'll understand what independence actually means." Oh, I'm about to understand it very well. The next morning, she announced she was planning a weekend trip with her new friends. A bonding experience to strengthen their friendship. She'd already requested the time off work and booked her spot. "When?" I asked, not looking up from my coffee. "This weekend. Friday through Sunday." "Sounds personal," I replied. She studied my face, looking for signs of the argument she expected. When she didn't find any, she seemed almost disappointed. "You're really okay with this?" I met her eyes directly. "You said your choices are personal." I agreed. "Have fun with your friends." What she didn't know was that I'd already started making some personal choices of my own. While she was planning her weekend of independence, I was planning something much more permanent. After all, if she wanted to be free to make personal choices without her husband's input, the least I could do was respect that by removing myself from the equation entirely. Wednesday morning, I did what any reasonable person would do when their spouse suddenly starts taking life advice from strangers. I got curious about who these people actually were. It took me about 20 minutes on Facebook to find the book club group. Amazing how much people share when they think nobody's paying attention. The group leader, the twice-divorced one, had her entire life on display. Photos from bars at midnight on weeknights, complaints about child support, and a collection of posts about how all men are basically children who need constant management. Then there were the other members. One woman posted daily about her workplace drama, usually blaming everyone except herself for getting written up. Another shared intimate details about her dating life, including screenshots of text conversations with married men. Real classy bunch. But what really caught my attention were the posts specifically about marriage advice. These women had turned husband bashing into an art form. According to them, any man who asked questions was controlling. Any man who had opinions about his wife's behavior was insecure. Any man who expected his wife to come home at reasonable hours was living in the past. I screenshotted a few particularly enlightening posts and closed my laptop. That evening, my wife came home later than usual, humming to herself like she'd won something. "Good day," I asked from the couch. "Great day? We had lunch after work to plan this weekend. You should see how excited everyone is." "Excited about what exactly?" She kicked off her heels and stretched. "Just girl time. You wouldn't understand. Try me. We're going to this resort upstate. Very exclusive. Adults only. We'll have spa treatments, wine tastings, maybe hit some of the local nightlife. Adults only resort. Nightlife. With women who collected married men like trading cards. Sounds expensive, I observed. It is. But we all decided we deserve it. When's the last time you spent money on something that made you happy?" Interesting question, considering I'd spent the afternoon researching divorce attorneys. But I kept that to myself. "You're right," I said. "Maybe it's time I started investing in my own happiness too." She paused in the doorway, something in my tone catching her attention. "What kind of investment?" "Personal choices, remember? I'm sure you'll understand." Thursday, she worked late again, or claimed she did. When she finally got home at 10:30, she was carrying takeout bags and wearing makeup that looked freshly applied. "Working hard or hardly working?" I asked. "Very funny. We had a client dinner that ran late." "Which client?" The question seemed to catch her off guard. "What? Which client? I could probably give you some insights if it's someone in my industry." "Oh, it was more of a group thing. Internal strategy session. Very boring." "Right. A strategy session that required fresh lipstick and perfume." "Well, I'm glad you're keeping busy," I said. "Gives me time for my own projects." "What projects?" I pulled out my phone and showed her a photo I'd taken that afternoon. I started cleaning out the garage. Amazing what you find when you actually look. The photo showed boxes of old documents, financial records, things I'd been meaning to organize for years. What it didn't show was the consultation appointment I'd scheduled with the best family law attorney in town. "Why now?" she asked. "Spring cleaning. Getting rid of things I don't need anymore. Organizing what I want to keep." She stared at the photo, then at me. Something in her expression shifted, like she was trying to solve a puzzle. "Don't throw away anything important," she said finally. "Don't worry. I'm very good at determining what has value and what doesn't." Friday morning arrived with her buzzing around the house like a teenager getting ready for prom. She'd bought new clothes, new luggage, even got her nails done during lunch the previous day. "You seem excited," I commented, watching her pack. "I am. This is exactly what I needed. Time to remember who I am outside of this house." "And who is that?" She paused, a dress halfway into her suitcase. "Someone who doesn't need permission to live her life." "Good for you," I said, meaning it in ways she couldn't imagine. "Everyone should know who they are." "What are you going to do this weekend?" she asked, zipping up her bag. "Oh, I've got plans. Nothing too exciting. Just some personal time to think about my future." "Your future?" I smiled. "My choices, remember? All personal." She was still studying my face when her phone buzzed. One of her new friends was outside, ready to pick her up. "Have fun," I said, kissing her cheek. "Make good choices." She grabbed her bag and headed for the door, then turned back. "You're being weird about this." "Weird how?" "Too okay with it. Too supportive." I shrugged. "You wanted independence. I'm giving it to you. But you're not angry." "Should I be?" She opened her mouth, then closed it. Finally, she said, "No. This is good. This is healthy." I agree completely. After she left, I sat in the quiet house for exactly 5 minutes. Then I picked up my phone and made 3 calls. The first was to confirm my Monday morning appointment with the attorney. The second was to my banker to discuss separating our accounts. The third was to my brother, asking if his guest room was available for an extended stay. By noon, I had a clear picture of exactly how much my wife's new independence was going to cost her. And it was going to be expensive. She wanted personal choices without consequences. She was about to learn that consequences don't need permission to show up. Friday evening, the house felt different without her constant energy buzzing through it. Peaceful, actually. I ordered pizza, opened a beer, and settled in to enjoy my first quiet evening in months. Around 9 p.m., my phone lit up with a text from her. A group photo at some upscale restaurant. All 4 women raising wine glasses to the camera. The message read, "Having the time of my life. Don't wait up." I didn't respond. Instead, I called my attorney's office and left a voicemail confirming Monday's appointment. Saturday morning brought more updates. Photos from their spa treatments, captions about self-care and living my best life. Each post had dozens of comments from other women cheering her on, telling her she deserved this freedom. What they didn't see was the background of those photos. I'd been to that resort before for a work conference. I knew the layout, the crowd it attracted. This wasn't just a girls' weekend spot. This was where people went when they wanted to pretend they were single for a few days. Around noon, my phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello. Is this her husband?" The voice was male, unfamiliar, and slightly drunk despite the early hour. "Who is this?" "Look, man, I thought you should know. Your wife is here at the pool bar telling everyone she's practically divorced. Said you two are just roommates now." I felt something cold settle in my chest, but my voice stayed steady. "And you are? Just a guy who doesn't like seeing married women lie about their situation. She's been buying drinks for half the bar, saying she's celebrating her freedom." "Appreciate the call," I said, and hung up. 10 minutes later, another text from her. This one was a selfie by the pool, but she wasn't alone. 3 men were in the background, clearly part of whatever conversation she was having. Her wedding ring was notably absent from her hand. I screenshotted everything. Saturday evening, I got a call from my neighbor across the street. "Hey, I hate to bother you, but there's been a car sitting outside your house for about an hour. Guy just sitting there looking at the place. Thought you should know." I looked out the window. Dark sedan, tinted windows, driver on his phone. Probably nothing, but interesting timing. "Thanks for letting me know. I'll keep an eye on it." The car left 20 minutes later, but not before I got a photo of the license plate. Sunday morning arrived with radio silence from my wife. No good morning text, no update photos, nothing. For someone who'd been documenting every moment of her freedom weekend, the sudden quiet was telling. I used the silence productively, packed 2 suitcases with essentials, and loaded them in my truck. Transferred half our joint savings into a personal account I'd opened Friday afternoon. Took photos of every room in the house, every major appliance, every piece of furniture we'd bought together. Then I sat down and wrote a letter. Not angry, not emotional, just factual. A simple explanation of how personal choices work in the real world. Around 3 p.m., my phone finally rang. Her number. "Hey babe, having such an amazing time. This weekend has been exactly what I needed. Glad to hear it. You sound weird. Everything okay? Everything's fine. Just enjoying my own personal time. Good. I was worried you might be sulking. No sulking here. Just thinking about the future. Our future. Interesting that she'd suddenly remembered we had an hour anything. My future, actually. Lots to consider." There was a pause. In the background, I could hear music, laughter, distinctly male voices. "Well, I should go. We're about to head out for dinner and maybe some dancing." "Dancing sounds fun. Make good choices." "I always do." After she hung up, I finished packing. The letter went on the kitchen table, sealed in an envelope with her name on it. My wedding ring went right next to it. By 5 p.m., I was at my brother's house, explaining the situation over a beer in his backyard. "You're really doing this?" he asked. She wanted independence from my opinions and my presence. I'm giving her exactly what she asked for. But what if she didn't mean it like that? I pulled out my phone and showed him the weekend's collection of photos and messages. Actions speak louder than words. She's been telling strangers she's practically divorced and spending the weekend acting like she's single. I'm just making her story true. That's cold, man. That's consequences. She made her choices. Now she gets to live with them. Sunday night. I got a series of increasingly frantic text messages. First, asking why I wasn't answering my phone, then asking why the house was so dark when she drove by. Finally, demanding to know where I was. I responded to the last one, making personal choices. You understand. My phone rang immediately. I let it go to voicemail. The voicemail was 2 minutes of her demanding I call her back, saying we needed to talk, that she was coming home early. The panic in her voice was unmistakable. Too little, too late. I texted back one final message. Check the kitchen table. Everything you need to know is there. Your independence starts now. Then I blocked her number and settled into my brother's guest room. Tomorrow, I'd start the legal process of turning her weekend of freedom into a lifetime of consequences. She wanted to discover who she was without her husband's influence. Now she'd have all the time in the world to figure it out. Monday morning at exactly 7 a.m., my phone started ringing from a number I didn't recognize. Then another. She was using different phones, trying to get through. I was sitting in the attorney's office by 8:30, going over the documentation I'd prepared. Photos, bank statements, screenshots of her weekend activities, and testimony from the stranger who'd called me Saturday. This is pretty comprehensive, the lawyer said, flipping through the folder. She really documented everything herself? She was proud of her independence weekend, wanted to share it with the world. Well, it certainly makes our case easier. When did you say she's expected back? She texted from a block number this morning. Said she was driving back immediately to fix this misunderstanding. Should be home by noon. And you're sure about this direction? Once we file, there's no taking it back quietly. I thought about her ringless hand in those photos, her claims to strangers about being practically divorced, the way she'd laughed while telling people her husband was just a roommate. I'm sure. By 10 a.m., the papers were filed. By 11, I was back at my brother's house, waiting. She didn't disappoint. My brother called me from his kitchen window at 12:15. Dude, she's at your house. She's been pounding on the door for 10 minutes. Now she's looking in windows. Let her look. 20 minutes later, she apparently found the spare key we kept under the fake rock. My brother's phone rang again. She's inside now. Just saw her storm through the living room. This is better than cable. I waited exactly 1 hour before driving over. When I pulled into the driveway, her car was parked crooked across both spaces like she'd been in a panic. I found her in the kitchen, my letter crumpled on the table, tears streaming down her face. She looked up when I walked in, and for a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. What is this? She demanded, waving the letter. What kind of sick joke is this? It's not a joke. It's exactly what you wanted. I never wanted this. I never wanted a divorce. Really? Because you spent the weekend telling strangers you were practically divorced already. I just made it official. Her mouth opened and closed like she was drowning. That was just talk. I was just having fun. Having fun pretending to be single. Having fun taking off your wedding ring. Having fun buying drinks for random men while telling them your husband was just a roommate. Who told you that? Does it matter? You made your choices very publicly. Now you get to live with them just as publicly. She sank into a chair, her weakened confidence completely evaporated. This is insane. You can't divorce me because I went on a girl's trip. I'm not divorcing you because of a girl's trip. I'm divorcing you because you declared your independence from our marriage and spent 3 days acting like a single woman. You got what you wanted. I wanted space to be myself. I wanted you to respect my friendships. And I want a wife who doesn't lie to strangers about our relationship status while flirting with men at resort bars. The color drained from her face. I wasn't flirting. I pulled out my phone and showed her the screenshots. Her social media posts, the photos, the comments from her new friends encouraging her freedom. You want to tell me what this looks like to you? She stared at the screen, then at me. You were spying on me. You were broadcasting it to the internet. I just paid attention. This is insane, she repeated, but quieter this time. We can work this out. We can go to counseling. We can fix this. Fix what? You said I had no right to judge your choices. You were right. But I also have no obligation to stay married to someone who doesn't want to be married. I do want to be married. To who? Because the woman who spent this weekend celebrating her freedom from her controlling husband doesn't sound like someone who wants to be married. She buried her face in her hands. When she looked up, her makeup was ruined. Her carefully styled weekend hair was a mess. Where are you staying? That's a personal choice. Don't do this. Don't throw away 8 years over one weekend. I'm not throwing anything away. You already did that when you decided our marriage was optional. I never said our marriage was optional. You said my opinions were irrelevant, my concerns were controlling, and my presence was something you needed independence from. What exactly did you think marriage was if not sharing a life with someone whose opinions matter to you? She sat there in stunned silence. Your friends were right about one thing. I continued. You deserve someone who supports your choices. And you deserve the consequences of those choices. Congratulations. You're free to make all the personal decisions you want without having to consider a husband's feelings. What about our house? Our life? Everything we built. Everything we built was built by two people who respected each other. You decided you didn't need my respect anymore. So now you get to build something new, all by yourself. I moved toward the door. Wait, she called after me. What am I supposed to tell people? I turned back to her, sitting alone at our kitchen table, surrounded by the wreckage of her weekend of independence. Tell them the truth. Tell them you chose your friends over your marriage, and your husband chose to respect that choice. That's not what happened. That's exactly what happened. You just thought it would happen without consequences. I walked to the door, then paused. Oh, and you might want to call your book club friends. Something tells me you're going to need their advice on being single again. The sound of her crying followed me all the way to my truck, but I didn't look back. She'd made her choices, and I'd made mine. The difference was, I'd thought mine through first. Tuesday morning brought the cavalry. Not one, not two, but all three of her book club friends showed up at my brother's house at 8 a.m. I watched from the window as they marched up the driveway like they were storming a castle. My brother answered the door before I could stop him. We need to talk to him, the group leader announced, pushing past my brother into the living room. This is ridiculous. You don't divorce someone over a girl's weekend. I came downstairs in no particular hurry. These women had spent months filling my wife's head with advice about independence and male toxicity. Time for them to meet the consequences of their wisdom. Ladies, I said, settling into my brother's recliner. To what do I owe the pleasure? You know exactly why we're here, snapped the twice-divorced one. She's devastated. This is completely out of proportion to what happened. Is it? Tell me, what exactly do you think happened? They exchanged glances. The one with two baby daddies spoke up. She went on a weekend trip with friends. That's not grounds for divorce. You're absolutely right. Going on a weekend trip isn't grounds for divorce. Then why? But lying to strangers about your marriage, taking off your wedding ring, and telling people you're practically divorced while buying drinks for other men? That's not a weekend trip. That's a weekend audition for being single. The group leader's face reddened. She was just having fun. She's been cooped up with your controlling behavior for years. She deserved to let loose. Controlling behavior. Interesting phrase. What would you call it when I asked where she was going at 10 p.m.? Basic human concern or controlling behavior? It depends on the context. The context was that my wife started staying out until 2 a.m. on work nights and coming home smelling like cigarettes and other men's cologne. But you ladies told her that was normal friendship behavior, right? The uncomfortable silence told me everything I needed to know. Here's what's really interesting. I continued, pulling out my phone. I took the liberty of looking into your advice. The leadership of this book club has quite the track record. I looked directly at their ringleader. 2 divorces before 30, currently dating a married man she met at a bar, and 3 restraining orders from ex-boyfriends. But somehow, she's qualified to give marriage advice. My personal life has nothing to do with. Your personal life is exactly what you've been projecting onto my wife. You took a woman in a stable marriage and convinced her that stability was oppression. I turned to the second woman. And you've been fired from 4 jobs in 2 years for workplace drama. But you convinced my wife that any man who questions his wife's judgment is insecure. Then to the third one. And you haven't had a relationship last longer than 6 months since high school. But you know exactly what's wrong with everyone else's marriage. The room went dead quiet. You want to know what's really controlling? I stood up, walking to the window, convincing a married woman to act single to prove some point about independence, encouraging her to lie about her relationship status to strangers, cheering her on while she destroys her marriage for your entertainment. We were helping her find herself, the leader said weakly. You were helping her become you. And congratulations, it worked. My phone buzzed. Text message from a number I didn't recognize. Please call me. We need to talk. I'll do anything to fix this. I showed them the message. She's blocked on my regular number, so she's trying new ones every few hours. Sound familiar? This is the behavior you taught her. She loves you. One of them protested. She loves the security I provided while she experimented with being single. There's a difference. You're being cruel. I'm being honest. You spent months telling her that marriage was a prison and independence meant acting like her husband didn't exist. She followed your advice perfectly. Now she gets to experience the full independence you promised her. The group leader tried one last approach. What if she cuts contact with us? What if she promises to change? What if you'd given her advice that helped her marriage instead of destroying it? What if you'd encouraged her to communicate with her husband instead of treating him like the enemy? What if you'd acted like actual friends instead of saboteurs? I walked to the door and opened it. But you didn't. You turned her against her marriage because misery loves company. And now you're all miserable together. Perfect outcome. They filed out without another word, but I could hear them arguing with each other before they even reached their cars. Apparently, when consequences started showing up, even best friends turned on each other. Wednesday brought a different approach. My wife's sister called. She's staying with me, she said without preamble. She hasn't eaten in 2 days. She won't stop crying. This has gone far enough. Has it? Because from where I sit, she's experiencing exactly what she said she wanted. She made a mistake. She made a choice. Multiple choices, actually, over several weeks. This wasn't one mistake. Everyone deserves a second chance. Everyone deserves the consequences of their choices too. She chose to prioritize advice from strangers over her marriage. She chose to lie about our relationship to other people. She chose to act single while married. These weren't mistakes. They were decisions. She realizes that now. Good for her. Realizing consequences exist doesn't make them disappear. So that's it. 8 years means nothing. 8 years meant nothing to her when she was telling people at that resort that she was practically divorced. I'm just making her story true. Thursday brought the final desperate play. My wife showed up at my office. Security called me first. There's a woman in the lobby claiming to be your wife. She looks pretty upset. Should we let her up? Send her up. She walked into my office looking like she hadn't slept in days. Good. Maybe she was finally understanding the weight of her choices. I fired them, she said without sitting down. All of them. I told them they were toxic and I never want to see them again. Congratulations. You figured out what I tried to tell you weeks ago. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know I messed up. But we can fix this. We can't fix anything. You can learn from it, but we can't fix it. Why not? I leaned back in my chair, studying her. Because you didn't just mess up with me. You messed up who you are as a person. You spent weeks lying to yourself about what marriage means, what friendship means, what loyalty means. That's not something couples counseling fixes. I was confused. They made it sound like independence was. They didn't make you do anything. They gave you permission to do what you wanted to do anyway. The only difference is, now you have to own it. She sank into the chair across from my desk. What do you want me to do? I want you to understand something. This isn't about punishment. This is about reality. You can't spend weeks destroying something and then expect it to be fixed with apologies. But I love you. Maybe you do. But you love the idea of having a backup plan more. And I refuse to be someone's backup plan. She left my office the same way she'd entered it. Alone, defeated, and finally understanding that choices have consequences. Some lessons cost more than others. Hers was about to cost her everything she'd taken for granted. 3 months later, I was signing the final divorce papers in my attorney's office when she walked in with her lawyer. She looked smaller somehow, like the weight of her choices had physically diminished her. Her attorney tried one last negotiation. My client is willing to accept a smaller settlement if we can delay this another 90 days. Give them time to work things out. I looked across the table at her. She wouldn't meet my eyes. No delays, I said. She wanted independence. Today she gets it. The paperwork took 20 minutes. 8 years of marriage reduced to signatures and legal stamps. When it was done, her lawyer packed up quickly and left. She lingered. Can we talk? She asked quietly. We just did. In legal terms. Those are the only terms we have now. I mean really talk. I closed my folder and looked at her directly for the first time since she'd walked in. What's left to say? That I understand now. That I see what they did to me. That I see what I did to us. Good. Understanding is the first step toward not repeating mistakes. With who? I'm alone now. Completely alone. The book club had imploded spectacularly, according to mutual acquaintances. When consequences started showing up for their advice, they turned on each other like wolves. The group leader was facing her own divorce after her married boyfriend's wife found their text messages. The job hopper had been fired again and was living with her parents. The one with 2 baby daddies was dealing with both fathers filing for full custody after her weekend behavior made the rounds on social media. That was your choice, I said. You chose their advice over my partnership. I was stupid. I was influenced by people who didn't have my best interests at heart. You were an adult who made adult decisions. Own them. She started crying then, quiet tears that she tried to hide. I lost everything for a weekend of pretending to be someone I'm not. You lost everything because you spent weeks becoming someone you thought you wanted to be. The weekend was just the reveal. Do you hate me? The question surprised me. I considered it carefully. No, I said finally. I don't hate you, but I don't respect you either. And I can't love someone I don't respect. Could you ever respect me again? That's not my job anymore. That's yours. You need to figure out how to respect yourself first. She wiped her eyes with a tissue from her purse. I see you around town sometimes. At the grocery store, the gas station. You look good. Happy even. I was happy, not because my marriage had ended, but because I'd stopped living with someone who didn't value what we had. I'd started dating again, carefully and selectively. I'd bought a small house that was mine alone. I'd reconnected with friends I'd neglected while trying to manage her crisis. I am happy, I said. Turns out, life gets easier when you're not constantly defending your worth to someone who should already know it. I know your worth now. Now doesn't matter. Now is too late. We walked out of the building together, but headed toward different parking areas. At the sidewalk, she turned back. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. I believe you are. But sorry doesn't undo actions. It just acknowledges them. Will you ever forgive me? I thought about that too. I already have forgiven you. That's for my peace, not yours. But forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. She nodded, understanding finally settling in her eyes. What are you going to do now? Whatever I want. That's the beauty of personal choices. When you make them thoughtfully, you get to live with the good consequences. I watched her walk to her car, shoulders bent under the weight of what she'd lost. Her sister had told people she was in therapy, trying to understand how she'd destroyed the best thing in her life for the approval of women who didn't even like themselves. That evening, I had dinner with my brother and his family. My nephew asked why his aunt wasn't there anymore. Sometimes adults make choices that change everything, I told him. And sometimes those changes can't be undone. But why would she choose to not be here? Because she thought something else would make her happier. Did it? No, buddy. It didn't. Later, driving home to my small house with its quiet rooms and peaceful evenings, I reflected on the whole situation. She'd wanted to discover who she was without her husband's influence. Mission accomplished. She'd found out she was someone who could be easily manipulated by toxic people. Someone who valued the opinions of strangers over the love of her spouse. Someone who would lie about her marriage to feel temporarily free. Most importantly, she discovered she was someone who needed external validation more than she needed integrity. I discovered something too. I was someone who wouldn't tolerate disrespect, even from someone I loved. Someone who understood the difference between supporting a partner and enabling their self-destruction. Someone who knew when to walk away. The divorce was final, but the Real resolution had happened months earlier, the moment I decided I deserved better than someone who treated our marriage like an optional part of her life. She got exactly what she'd asked for. Complete independence from her husband's opinions, complete freedom to make personal choices, and complete responsibility for the consequences of those choices. Some people spend years learning that actions have consequences. She'd gotten a masterclass in 3 months. And me? I'd learned that sometimes the best way to love someone is to let them experience the full weight of what they've chosen, even if that weight crushes them, especially if it crushes them.
Our story has come to an end. If you've made it this far, how about subscribing to our channel? It helps us immensely. I've selected 2 other videos for you that I'm sure you'll enjoy. Feel free to click on them. I'll be waiting for you in the next story. See you soon.